Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense? I never know if I'm making any sense. Hi everybody, my name is Alex, and on this channel I talk about all things knitting, crochet, and fiber in general. This is episode 3 of my knitting podcast, and today is super exciting. I feel like 3 episodes in, it's a legit thing. It's actually happening now. It's been kind of a long time since I uploaded my last episode, and that's because I haven't had a ton of time to knit in the last couple weeks. I've been pretty focused on finishing up school and traveling a little bit, and my best friend's bachelorette weekend, which was super fun. So yeah, I haven't had a lot of like sitting down for many hours at a time to work on things. So I waited a little bit longer so I would have enough to show you, which I think before I said that I would do podcasts every 2 weeks, I think I'm more going to stick to this situation where I just upload a podcast when I feel like I want to share. I don't want it to get too redundant, and I don't know. Let me know if you think that's okay or if you'd prefer it to be a different way. Personally, I really like watching long podcast videos because I like to be able to knit while I'm watching/listening, depending on what I'm working on. So if you don't mind a shorter podcast episode, let me know so I can make those too, like in between the longer ones. Do you like short episodes? Do you like long episodes? Do you like a mix of both? Yeah, let me know. But today is pretty exciting, because today I have 1 finished object, which is technically 2, 3 whips, and I think instead of doing an acquisition section, I'm going to do my upcoming plans. I was watching The Woolly Worker, and she had transitioned to that in her podcast, which I really like. So I'm just going to talk about my upcoming plans at the end. Yeah, let's start with my finished objects, which are these 2 granny square flower crochet headbands. This is actually my own pattern that I designed, made up. I don't know. I wouldn't know if I would call myself a designer. It's more so this is like what my crochet experience consists of. I see something that I really like and I think I could make that. So then I recreate it, not following a pattern. I don't think I've ever followed a crochet pattern, but I saw a headband very similar to this when I was walking through Marshall's a couple weeks ago, and I thought to myself, I can make that. So then I came home and I did it. I recreated it. And actually, I have a full video tutorial that I posted on my channel a couple weeks ago that takes you through step by step how to make these. So if you want to make one, go check out that video. I also have the pattern posted on Ravelry for free, and I wrote a PDF version. So you can either watch the video tutorial or you can read the pattern, whichever one you prefer for your making needs. I took some photos of me wearing them. I think they're super cute and the perfect accessory for summer. They were also so quick. I used scrap yarn, so I used Lion Brand Pima cotton in this yellow color for the center of the flowers, and then I used this acrylic yarn that I don't know the brand of. I think it's whatever the Michaels brand of yarn is. This is something I've had in stash for a very long time. And then for the other headband, I used this yarn, which I made my Ole mittens in. So this was all excess from another project. I also made a whole video documenting how I made those mittens, if you want to go check that out. This is also from Michaels, also an acrylic yarn, I think. I am better at tracking my yarn brand and fiber now, but I don't really know what they are pre this YouTube channel. So sorry about that. And then I used Knit Pal Cotton to the Core for the white part of the headband. I've talked about this yarn quite a lot. I'm making some other things in it right now, so I don't know. I bought a ton of it, so I've been using it for a bunch of different things. So this is worsted weight. This acrylic yarn, I assume, is also worsted weight. I don't know, it's about the same thickness as the Lion Brand one, but this cotton yarn is a DK weight. So I held this double in order to make the headbands. That means that these headbands can be made with any stash yarn that you have. You might need to just hold a few strands together to make a thicker gauge. I was thinking about this and I might make another one in a fingering weight yarn with just more granny squares. So for each of these headbands, I made 4 granny squares and then just crocheted the bands with these little ties to go around the base of your neck. But if you make the squares out of thinner yarn, then the squares will just be smaller, and then you can, if you make more of them, then you have the same headband, but it's thinner. So if you don't want the headband to be as thick, I think you could still follow the same pattern and just make more of the squares. I might do that. I don't know. I don't have a lot of fingering weight yarn, which is why I use the yarn that I used, but yeah, just an idea. I really, really like these headbands. I think I'm going to be wearing them a lot. Originally made this one, and I thought that the lavender color was going to be my all-time favorite because it kind of looks like an aster flower, which I'm from the mountains in California, and asters are a wildflower that grow there, and they're like one of my favorite flowers. I love them so much. Thinking about getting them tattooed actually. And so I thought I would really like this headband, but I really like the contrast of this darker burgundy color against my hair and my skin tone. And then I remembered, duh, because burgundy is my favorite color. So that makes sense. They are super easy to make. So I would say it's a very beginner friendly project. If you are new to crochet or you don't have advanced crochet skills, the techniques are not complicated, and it only takes like an hour to make one of them. So if you're looking for that instant gratification of starting and finishing something in the same sitting, it's a great option. I also think that they would be great gifts because I talked about this in my summer knitting plans video, but it's like the perfect little thing that doesn't take you very long and doesn't cost very much, but it's still a handmade item that you can give to people. And I feel like for people with summer birthdays, what a great birthday gift to gift them this little crochet headband. That is if they wear headbands. So I guess it only applies to some people. But yeah, let me know if you make the pattern. And if you post any photos anywhere, make sure to tag me so I can see your beautiful headbands. And use the hashtag perfect summer headband so we can create a collection of all the cool headbands. Okay, I'll stop talking about them now. Let's move on to my whip. My first whip is my CARDI Jumper. I haven't made much progress since my last podcast. This is what it's looking like. I will also insert photos of it on me so you can see how it actually works as a cardigan. Since my last podcast, I think I've joined under the arms and I've made a little bit of progress on the body, but not a substantial amount of progress. If this is your first time watching my podcast, I am making this cardigan to wear over a dress to a wedding that I'm going to on June 30th. And it is already kind of well into June at the time of me recording this video, so I definitely have a lot of work to do. We will see if I am successful in completing this. My mom says that she also has some other cardigan options for me to wear if I don't finish this. So it's not like I won't have anything to wear, but I would really like to be able to wear this. It's just it's knit on 3.5 millimeter needles, and I'm holding two lace weights together, and it's just taking forever. It's also my first cardigan, so it's my first time having to knit and then purl back an entire row, and the purl rows just take me so long, and I'm definitely not enjoying it as much as stockinette in the round. It's not that I don't like purling. I'm working on another project that has lace, which I'll show you in a second, but I don't mind purling in that. It's just that this, because it's such a small gauge combined with the fact that it's purling, I feel like purling takes me out of the flow, and when I am knitting, it's seamless. I don't have to look at my hands, like I can just knit. But for purling, especially holding two strands together, I definitely need to look at my hands, and it takes a little bit longer. So I actually calculated, let me nerd out real quick. So I calculated how many rows I could knit in 30 minutes, and then I measured how many rows there were in 5 centimeters, and then I extrapolated that to figure out how many minutes I need to knit it to the full length that it needs to be. And it calculated out to be 12 hours. I need 12 hours of knitting time to finish the body of this cardigan, but then I also need time to knit the sleeves. And because those are in the round, I anticipate that they will go a little bit faster. If they don't even go faster, they will maybe be more enjoyable. So I estimate I need 8 hours for the sleeves, which now I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I can do a sleeve in 4 hours. That seems ambitious. Okay, so let me up that to say another 12 hours for the sleeves, 6 hours, if I'm just working zoned in. And that calculates out to a little over an hour a day for me to finish before I leave for the trip. I also didn't account for the I-cord, which goes on at the end. So maybe I just need a couple days dedicated to this, and we'll see if I find the time in the next 3 weeks. Yeah, there are some other things I want to talk about with this cardigan. So the first is that I didn't mention this in my other podcast episodes because I didn't have any notes with me, but I actually have wrote notes down to talk about in this episode. And the first thing is that the shoulder construction was so wacky for this. Where's the shoulder? Let me find a shoulder. I didn't realize it at the time because this was my first cardigan, but now I've watched a bunch of other podcast episodes and I've looked at patterns for other cardigans, and I realized that this was just like the craziest way to do it. So the way that you start is you cast on a teeny tiny amount of stitches. I think it's like 3 stitches, and you work increases to make a triangle section for the shoulder, and then you do that for one shoulder, and then you do it for the other shoulder, and then you attach the shoulders together, and each time between each segment the pattern tells you to break the yarn, and then you knit the front left panel, which goes down and then into the little bit of a v-neck, and then you break the yarn, and then you knit the right front panel and break the yarn, and then you knit the back panel and break the yarn. and then you knit one row that attaches all of them together underneath the arm. So that's like it's a lot of yarn breaking that I feel like if I had known how the construction was going to work together, I wouldn't have broken the yarn as much, and I would have kept the balls attached and just started new balls of yarn or something. And all I'll say is that if you decide to knit this, the CARDI Jumper, after you knit the front left panel, which is the first front one that you knit, you don't need to break the yarn. Just if you have the yarn available, pick up a new ball of yarn to knit the right front panel and the back panel following the pattern as normal. And then when you go back to attach it all underneath the arms, you can just continue using that yarn that you left on hold after knitting the front left panel. And that, I guess it eliminates two ends to weave in, because it's like the tail end from where you would have broken plus the end that you need to join when you go to knit everything together. It eliminates only two ends, but definitely an option if you do knit this cardigan. Yeah, overall I really like the color. I'm using Jubilee Delightfully Fine in the color Beloved Pearl, held with a mohair, and I was worried about it being a little itchy. It is a little itchy, but I think it'll be okay for the very minimal amount of time that I need to wear it, and I think it's really cute, so I think it will be worth it. I tried it on over the dress that I'm planning to wear, so I know that it definitely goes with my dress. I'm still debating whether or not I will wear it with the V-neck in the front or with the V-neck in the back. Obviously, it's really hard to tell in this state because it's like barely a cardigan. You can barely tell it's going to eventually be a cardigan. I asked on my Instagram story whether or not people thought I should wear it with the V-neck in the front or the V-neck in the back. More people thought that I should wear it with the V-neck in the back. So right now that's my plan, which was my original plan when I chose the pattern. So that's good that people are agreeing. Somebody asked me on Instagram whether I could make a tutorial on how to pick up stitches for sleeves. So I am planning to do that when I get to that stage in this cardigan, and I'm actually considering doing that in this stage to give me a sleeve to work on so that I make some progress, because right now I'm not working on it because I don't want to be knitting the body. I'm just deferring the sleeve knitting until later, where I could knit the sleeve now and then defer the body till later, and it would overall take less time. Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense? I never know if I'm making any sense. So somebody asked for that tutorial, so I plan to make that tutorial, because there's two ways to make sleeves. Either the pattern is like a raglan or some similar situation where you already have live stitches that are just on hold and you only need to pick up a couple stitches. And then there's situations like this cardigan where you need to pick up stitches around the whole armhole. So I'm planning to include both of those techniques in the video. I don't know when that video will be out, but it will be sometime in the next month, probably. Yeah. Okay. My next whip is kind of a spontaneous cast on, and that is because I was visiting Max's grandparents, and Max's grandmother asked me to knit her. She's the first person to request a hand knit item from me. Everything that I've made so far that's a gift knit, I decide that I'm going to make it, but it was really special that she came to me and she specifically asked for something, and she is definitely 100% knit worthy. She has the coolest style, and she's always wearing the most beautiful and funky and colorful sweaters and cardigans. She requested a shawl to wear over her shoulders when she gets a little chilly. I found a bunch of shawl patterns and I put them all into a Ravelry bundle, which I can link in the description, I guess, if you guys want to see which patterns I was looking at. And I went through them with her, and she picked out this pattern, which is the Cowboys and Angels shawl wrap scarf. It's like a shawl. It's a triangle. I'm gonna call it a shawl, by Isabel Kramer. I'll insert a photo of the pattern, but it's this beautiful triangle shawl that has lace detailing on the top and along the edge. When you're not doing the lace, most of it is knit in garter stitch, which is very nice because for the body of it, you just have to knit, no purling. It calls for a DK weight yarn on 4.5 millimeter needles. I think the yarn that I bought is actually a worsted weight, but it's a shawl. If the sizing is a little bit off, it doesn't matter because it doesn't need to fit like a garment fits. It's just something that you throw over. And I asked her what color she wanted, and I was like, you can pick literally any color. And she said, I like that color. I like that yellow that's in the pattern photos. And one other requirement was that she really, really didn't want it to be itchy. She did not want it to be wool because she was worried that the wool would be itchy, which I completely understand. Many of the wool things that I have knit are itchy. She really wanted it to be like a soft, cozy thing. And she also really wanted it to be easy to care for. So she wanted to be able to throw it in the washing machine, not necessarily the dryer, but definitely throw it in the washing machine and not have to worry about it. And I just thought that going with an acrylic yarn would be the best option for this garment. I talk about in my video, my what I wish I knew before I started knitting video, how acrylic yarn is really great for gift knits because it's really easy to care for. So that is what I chose. I ended up finding a yarn that was actually very close to the pattern color, which is this Lion Brand Heartland yarn in the color is it? I think the color is Canyonlands. I can't tell if that's the color or if that's that's the only thing that would make sense in terms of where it's located on this skein. But yeah, this is 142 grams, 230 meters, and it is a worsted weight, a weight 4. But I think it'll be okay. It has this really beautiful heathering I really like. I think it'll give it some really great dimension, even though it's a big box acrylic yarn. And on here, it actually says it's machine washable and dryable. So great yarn for gifting to other people because it's easy to take care of for sure. So hard to show. It's gotten to the point where it doesn't fit on the needles anymore. Like it's gonna be all bunched up, but oh well. Has this been there the whole time? Sorry about that. This is my whale mug that I got at the Monterey Bay Aquarium that I went to for my friend's bachelorette party weekend thing, and she actually got the exact same mug unintentionally. Like we picked the same one unintentionally. We didn't know that the other person was also going to pick the same mug. So now we have matching mugs. She already has one and she told me about it before we went, and I was like, I'm definitely buying a mug. But I did not mean to buy the same mug as her. I just wanted a whale mug. Anyway, it's just really cute ceramic mug that holds so much liquid. That is what I look for in a mug. I like a bowl of coffee in the morning, and it has this really cute whale tail, but it has been in frame, I think, for the whole video. So I'm going to put it over here. Sorry about that. Let me start over explaining what is going on here. This is a shawl. You start by casting on stitches here. This is the upper back, like the part that rests on the upper part of your back if you're wearing it over your shoulders. You like that move? Yeah. I was a dancer for 16 years. I can move. My God. What is happening right now? This is the shawl. You cast on up here. It has this really beautiful, just hold it in the other hand. It has this really beautiful lace pattern at the top. Now that I'm thinking about it, I've never knit cables or lace before. So this is my first lace project. And it's kind of like lace mixed with cables where the stitches cross over themselves like a cable would. I mean, it's only ever one stitch crossing over one stitch. So it's a very small little cable. But it creates this basket woven situation that is so cool. And to watch this emerge before my eyes, like to be the one making this was so much fun. I had so much fun knitting this part of the pattern. The pattern tells you to repeat a certain number of rows, I think 5 times, and it creates a pretty big lace section. But the fact that I'm using a larger weight yarn, so my gauge is probably a little bit bigger, combined with the fact that Max's grandma specifically requested a warm shawl, like she wants it to be warm all over. I didn't want the lace to be too large of a section because, you know, it has holes, so it's not the warmest part, and that is the part that'll be over her shoulders where she kind of needs it to be warm. She said that, I mean, I mentioned that when she picked out this pattern. I was like, you know, it has lace, right? Which has holes. And she said, yeah, I'll just fold that part over. So she is aware that it has lace, but I just wanted to shorten the lace section a little bit for those reasons. And then I moved on to this next section, which has these most adorable little baubles. These are like the teeny tiniest baubles I've ever seen. This is also my first time making baubles, so that was something that I was never expecting to make because I don't necessarily want baubles in a garment for myself, but I'm so excited that I got to make it because I'm knitting this for somebody else. This whole shawl, in fact, I don't know if I would ever wear a shawl, but now knitting a shawl, I'm thinking I might want a shawl for myself. I don't know, I'm like imagining all the situations that I would wear a shawl, and it's not very frequent, but the fact that I get to knit one is so exciting. And the reason that I passed this on, despite the fact that I have that CARDI jumper that I really need to finish, I'm so excited to get to make a shawl and to get to learn all these new techniques. So far I've learned how to do lace, I've learned how to do that little cabling situation, which is the acronyms for the stitch where you cross the stitches is an MT and an LT. I don't know what that stands for because it doesn't say it in the pattern. So if you know and you could comment that down below, that would be really helpful. I haven't tried Googling it. I guess I could do that. The fact that I get to make a shawl for somebody else and get to knit it for somebody who will actually enjoy it is the best thing I could ask for. In fact, I got to learn how to make these baubles. I'm loving. And now I am on to the garter stitch part, which is super fun. I actually haven't knit anything in garter stitch since I knit when I was like 8 years old, which if you haven't heard me talk about this before, my grandmom taught me how to knit when I was probably like 7 or 8. And I think I knit for a total of 2 weeks over the course of a year. And I made garter stitch headbands, which I just seamed together. They were pretty bad, but I loved them. At the time, I knit English style because that's the way that my grandma knit, so that's the way that she taught me, but I didn't like it that much, and I now knit continental and I love it. And this is just maybe a little side note. I have found that knitting continental makes me enjoy knitting so much more, and I don't think I would have stuck with it if I continued to knit English style. So if you are new on your knitting journey, I'm not sure how many people are new on their knitting journey here, but if you are new on your knitting journey and you're not loving it because you find it like tedious or you don't love it, it doesn't feel comfortable and natural, try other knitting styles because there is maybe another style out there that is more natural. Yeah, back to the shawl. This is growing pretty quickly because the yarn is a thicker weight and because I really like working on it. The pattern tells you to do 5 repeats of a certain row section, and I only did 3 repeats. Oh, okay, sorry about that. My phone ran out of storage, which is my camera that I record on. So I just deleted a video, and hopefully I have enough storage to finish this. Max also came home, so there was an interruption. I have 20 minutes to finish this podcast. So let's see if we can do that. I was talking about the shawl that I'm knitting, and how I only did 3 repeats of the section that you're supposed to repeat, plus the 2 setup rows for the next section. And so far I haven't encountered any stitch irregularities. The pattern is still matching up enough. The only modification that I made is that I made, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. I made 12 bobbles instead of the 16, I think, that you're supposed to make in the pattern. The spacing for everything is still exactly the same. I just do fewer of it. And now I'm on to the garter stitch section, which is pretty long. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying making the shawl, so much so that I'm working on this more than I'm working on my cardigan, which definitely needs to change because I definitely need to finish that cardigan. We'll see if I actually do that. My next whip is actually a test knit. This is my first test knit, which is really exciting. And it is for Celine, who actually also has a podcast. You should definitely go check her out. I absolutely love her podcast. I remember watching her Everything I Made in 2023 video. She was actually one of the first people to make me think, oh, maybe I want to try knitting, because she's made some really beautiful crochet pieces, which is why I watched her video in the first place. But then I saw all of the amazing knit garments that she has made. And I was like, that is the kind of garment that I want to make. I want to knit garments. Anyway, that was a tangent. This is her Winnie sweater that is currently in testing, and I am one of her test knitters, which is a little surreal. I'm geeking out just a little bit because I kind of feel like I'm knitting for a celebrity. I'm knitting the size large. I'm knitting it in Drops Air in the color olive, I think. I think it's called olive, which is this beautiful green, forest green. It's a little bit darker than it's showing up on camera. I'm not sure why the camera's doing that, but it has all this really beautiful variation in the color, and it's a blown yarn, I think. 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide, and 7% wool. And I think the chain that's in the yarn, let's see if we can get close enough, or maybe I'll insert a Google image photo. The chain that's in the core of the yarn is the polyamide, and then the alpaca and the wool is kind of woven throughout it. So it makes a really light and airy yarn. This 50 grams has 150 meters, and recommends 5mm needles. So I think it's a worsted or Aran weight yarn. This is not the yarn that Celine knit hers in. I think she knit hers in an Isager yarn, but this was the cheapest of the options for the pattern. So I thought I'd try it out because I'm always looking to save a couple bucks on yarn. Drops is known to be a cheaper yarn that's still natural fibers, even though this is a little bit polyamide. That's probably why it's less expensive, because it uses polyamide instead of something like cotton for the core. I ordered it from Wool Warehouse, and it was actually quite the saga because it was supposed to, I specifically chose the option that has tracked shipping so that I would know when it gets here. And it was supposed to arrive within like 5 days of being sent from the warehouse, and 5 days came and then went, and then it was a couple more days. I kept checking the updates on the tracking system. It just kept saying in transit. Eventually it even got to where I live, and days just kept saying in transit. I tried to call Wool Warehouse and the tracking company to see, like, is it here? Because I will come pick it up wherever it is. You don't need to even actually deliver it to my house. I will go get it. Then right as I was figuring out the solution to all of that, it did arrive. It was just a little bit delayed. Actually didn't start the knit until maybe 2 weeks after the testing started. I am in a group chat with all of the other people who are test knitting. It's a great group chat. Everybody is so kind, and they're all posting their progress photos, and it's so incredible to see what everybody else is making and the colors that they chose and the yarns that they chose. And it's just really cool to be part of a test knit like this. So far, the pattern has been incredible. I really love the mock neck on this. I also really love bell-shaped sleeves. It's a similar sleeve to the blouse number 1 that I just knit. I'll insert a photo of me trying it on at this stage so you can really see what it looks like, but I think I'm about to bind off for the hem. So I need your opinion. The pattern says to knit to a certain length from the cast on edge to the hem, but I'm a little short. I'm 5'4", and I wear high-waisted pants all the time, and I do like sweaters that are a bit more cropped. So my question is, do you like this length that it's currently at? And I do expect it to grow a little bit during blocking because my gauge swatch grew a little bit during blocking. Do you think I should keep it at this length, which is 7 centimeters shorter than the pattern says I should knit it to? Or do you think I should knit it 7 centimeters longer, which is where my hand is in this photo, and knit it exactly to pattern? Do you think it's okay to make that modification to make it a little bit shorter? Because do you think that that looks better, or do you think it'll look just as good if I knit it longer? I would really like your input. This is a contiguous shoulder construction, which I now know that that is definitely what it's called, which means that we have this shaping along the top of your shoulder that makes it look like a seam, which is really cool. And then it sprouts out from the shoulder to make this little sleeve cap. You just do by doing make one left, make one rights at certain intervals. And it's a very similar process to the blouse number 1, but completely different counting and different orders. Like the overall process is the same, but the stitch counts and everything like that are completely different. Something that I really love about this shoulder is that the sleeve cap kind of just comes out of nowhere. Like, unless you're really looking for it, you can't really see the seam. So it kind of just like sprouts outwards without having a harsh line, like a raglan or seam line, because you don't knit any raglan stitches while you're doing those increases. Right before the underarm, there's some underarm shaping before putting the sleeve stitches on hold and knitting the rest of the body. Well, side note, finally got some stitch stoppers. They're these really cute little daisies that I love a lot, and they're perfect for this project where the yarn tends to slip off my needles. It is quite grippy, so it doesn't slip off my needles totally. When I'm knitting the body and the stitches are a little bunched up, it definitely is nice to have stitch stoppers. As far as the yarn goes, the yarn does shed considerably. Like, after I try it on, if I try it on with something underneath, the thing underneath is completely covered in fuzz. And I hope that lessens with blocking, but we'll see. I will say that this is so much softer than the Drops brushed alpaca, which I made my step-by-step sweater in. That Drops brushed alpaca was actually, okay, let me rephrase. That the Drops brushed alpaca is very soft, but it is very itchy at the same time. This Drops Air is also extremely soft, extremely lofty, but not nearly as itchy. I do have some sensitivity around my neck, like where the collar touches my neck, but no sensitivity on my arms, no sensitivity in other places except like my chest neck area if I'm not wearing anything underneath the sweater. So I know that for next time, if I want a fuzzy yarn from Drops, I will definitely choose Drops Air as opposed to a wool combined with the Drops brushed alpaca. I thought that maybe I had sensitivity to alpaca specifically, but I don't think it's that. I think it's just the Drops brushed alpaca that I have problems with. So yeah, that's nice to know. You don't do any ribbing around the neck or the cuffs or the hem. So there's a really cool technique to prevent the hem from rolling, which it's just stockinette, so normally would roll, but you do a cool technique to prevent that from rolling. And then you also do it on the hem and on the sleeves, which I really appreciate. And definitely something that I'll be using in my future knits if I ever design something myself or make something a little that's freehand. There are some short rows on the back, but other than that, it's a completely, I would say it's a very beginner friendly pattern. So if you like the look of this sweater, I would highly recommend purchasing the pattern when it comes out to knit it. It's a lovely pattern and has been a very fast knit. So the fact that I didn't get my yarn for 2 weeks and I already finished the body and I just had the sleeves to do, that is fast. The deadline isn't until the end of June, so I'm not worried about the deadline. I know that I will definitely finish it before then. One note about the collar. In the pattern, it says to intentionally a loose cast on for the collar. It even recommends going up a needle size if you want to for the cast on so that you make sure that it's looser. But I thought that my long tail cast on was loose enough, and it is just a smidgen too tight. I am able to get it over my head, but I definitely am not able to get it over my head in any, like if I was wearing a full face of makeup or if I had my hair up, I would not be able to get it over my head without ruining those things. So that's just my own fault. The pattern does say to go up a needle size, and it also says to check that you can get it over your head after you've knit the collar. So it says to put the collar part on some try-on tubing and then try it on to make sure you can get it over your head. And I did that, and I was like, it's good enough. And I definitely wish that I had just ripped back and made the cast on a little bit looser, but it doesn't affect the look of the sweater at all. I would just say if you knit this, to make sure to listen to that in the pattern. I am knitting mine on 5.5 millimeter needles, which is what the pattern calls for. I did meet gauge, so that was cool to know that Celine and I have the same gauge. And yeah, overall, a very, very enjoyable knit. It's, I think, the perfect first test knit. This is another very warm sweater that I knit despite it being warm outside, but I definitely think I'll get a lot of wear out of this, and it is chillier at nighttime where I live, so I definitely think that I'll still wear this a little bit in the summer. Definitely, for sure, wear it in the fall and the winter. I just love this olive color so much. I love this green. I think it works so well with my complexion. Max actually picked out this green. I was looking on Wool Warehouse and trying to decide yarn color, and he is so good at picking out the right color for me. He's done it multiple times now, so I definitely trust him with yarn color choosing. Yeah, okay. That is everything I have to say about my Winnie sweater. Go follow Celine on Instagram. She's at Woozy by Celine, and go watch her podcast too, because she's pretty cool. Okay, we have gotten to the final section in the podcast, which is my upcoming plan. So when I was in Monterey for my friend's bachelorette weekend, going to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, getting this really cool mug, there is a beautiful knitting store there called Monarch Knitting, and they actually carry Sadness Garn and Knitting for Olive, and it was my first opportunity to see those yarns in person. So I went back to the yarn store on my way home after the bachelorette weekend, and specifically to go and see those yarns because everybody talks about them all the time. They're recommended in so many patterns. I needed to see what the hype was about, and I will say that I have now ordered the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk and Cotton Merino. I got a couple gift cards for my birthday for Knitting for Olive, so I actually ordered the yarn from their website as opposed to buying from Monarch Knitting because I have those gift cards, but I did buy yarn for this project that I'm about to talk about. So I'm going to be knitting the 7 p.m. tank by Tiff Knit. I talk about this in both my spring knitting plans and my summer knitting plans, so it has been in the plans for a long time. The fact that I still want to make it makes me really excited to make it because that means that I actually want it. Like, I really think that I'll wear it, especially for summertime. And yeah, I just love the details on it. I talk about it in those videos if you want more details on the pattern or on the design and what I like about it. But I got Rowan Summerlight 4-ply, which is Egyptian cotton in this beautiful purple color for the 7 p.m. tank. The pattern calls for a fingering weight yarn. Actually, I think it calls for a light fingering weight yarn, but this is a fingering weight, and I think it'll be okay. I'm hoping, at least, on 2 to 2.75 millimeter needles, I think. So that'll be my smallest needle size I've ever knit with. But it's a pretty small tank top. Like, it doesn't cover much of your body, so I feel like it'll still take a normal amount of time to make. I might be totally wrong about that. 50 grams is 175 meters. I bought 3 of them. I really hope that that's enough, because I can't get more very easily. I could order it online, I guess, but it definitely won't be from the same dye lot if I do that. I'm still trying to figure out this whole yarn quantity thing. I have enough based on what the pattern says that I need, but yeah, I don't know. I hope that it's enough. I'm really excited to make the 7 p.m. tank. I also went to a yarn store that's a little bit closer to me, and I picked up this wool wash, which I didn't have previously. I was just using my shampoo to block my knits, which I don't know if you're supposed to do that. I assume that because you can use shampoo on human hair, you can also use it on animal hair, but please let me know if that is an incorrect assumption. I do have wool wash now, so I will definitely use this. This is Eucalyptus. Oh, it's no rinse, which is really nice, so I can just put it in the water and I don't have to worry about rinsing afterwards. And it has a eucalyptus scent. Yeah, very excited about that. And then another acquisition, which I really need to stop buying things, but that's just the way life is right now. And that is, I finally found the right button for my cardigan. I guess I could have talked about this with the cardigan, but they're these perfect little mother of pearl buttons that are flat. I don't even know if you can see that. And they're an off-white color. They're more creamy than pure white, which the other pearl buttons that I got were very much pure white, and they looked a little cheap because they were plastic from Michaels. So these are much better. This is actual mother of pearl, and yeah, I'm really excited to use these on my CARDI Jumper. Okay, I think I'm gonna end the podcast there. I hope that I hit all the points I was meaning to talk about. If not, I will definitely be talking about all these things in the next podcast. Hopefully, some of them will be finished objects by then, otherwise I will not be on schedule. If you want to see more regular updates of all these projects, make sure to follow me on Instagram. My username is the same as it is here on YouTube, AlexJames_fiber. You can also follow me on TikTok and friend me on Ravelry if you want, so that we can see what each other are making all the time. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment down below. It really helps the algorithm. I appreciate all of you who have said that you enjoy my videos, and I would really appreciate it if you commented so that YouTube knows to recommend my videos to other people who like to watch knitting podcasts. If you have any recommendations for how I can improve the podcast, as always, please comment it, because I like, this is for you just as much as it is for me. I love sitting down and I feel like I'm talking to friends about knitting, which I can't do that with anybody in my personal life. So it's really amazing that I get to do that here on the internet. Hopefully you are also knitting or crocheting or making while you're watching these videos, and you just get to hang out with me while I do that. So if you have any suggestions for how to improve the podcast, please let me know. Hopefully the microphone helped. It is a little annoying to have to hold the microphone the whole time. This has a little clip. Anytime that I clip it to anything, the friction against the microphone just makes it like you can't hear anything. So I think I need to get a new microphone. If you have a podcast or you record videos of any kind and you have a handheld personal microphone like this that you love, that would work for this kind of application where I would ideally like to use both hands, please let me know what microphone you use, because this one is not ideal. If you enjoyed hanging out with me, please consider subscribing and turning on the bell notifications so you get notified every time I post. And if you stuck with me all the way until the end, thank you. I appreciate you so much. I will be back next week with another video. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one.